Bitcoin's heading into the weekend in the middle of its ascending trading channel that began in the middle of June. I'm going to throw these objects on during today's analysis to show you essentially a three-zone mentality with possible rejection points and possible bounce points. The middle zone would be essentially a bunch of chop. These vertical lines are when I think the choppy mess could resolve itself, where you can see more volatility in a true direction where Bitcoin will get continuation. This has to do with the release of high impact economic data, and Bitcoin will likely just chillax over the weekend, perhaps go as high as this area here and as low as this area here, but most likely hang around the yellow zone until these times. So let's go get this Bitcoin and check out a more in-depth analysis. You ready? The meat of this three zone is the breakdown of the weekly and 12-hour candle area. I'll show you that on a different chart. And it's the daily open line from today as I'm recording this Friday, August 8th. I think this line will come into play over the weekend because of CMEs particularly. It'll be the last standing daily open line. So I think this will come into play. Now, over the weekend, in general, I don't think that price will move much out of this zone here. So at any time in the weekend, I would assume that price is somewhere to this effect, but I would expect it to essentially have a mean reversion somewhere back in this yellow zone. That's my general expectations. As you can see here, the weekly 10, actually you can't see that. The weekly 10 is going to be hovering where I have this purple rejection point here. Let's go ahead and zoom into there. So the weekly 10 will be over in this area. Should Bitcoin want to float up over the weekend or have a spike up on Monday or Tuesday, it should hit this low 24,000s area, which would also be a channel line, and it'd be a double resistance with the weekly 10 coming in, acting as pressure down along with this channel line, which would be a 45-degree angle. Crypto loves 45-degree angles to make higher lows, and boom, bada bing, it is roughly in line with all of that as well. So the daily open line is coming in roughly at 22,640, and I'm going to show you that breakdown point. Why I'm using the top, why I've chosen the top of this yellow zone here. I'm going to go to a different chart. Let's check this out. Take off the EMA, and I'm going to put on the 12-hour chart. So you can see here, you got a lot of interesting price action that's happening in this area here. That's the top of the yellow box. If I go to the weekly, it's just above these two weekly candles, but I think that the upper range of the yellow box would be coinciding with these big breakdowns on the 12-hour candles are getting a lot of good stuff here, and the 12-hour chart in general guides you pretty well. So I put the top of the yellow zone there, and then the daily open is the bottom of that. And since the CMEs of the futures of Bitcoin are closing today, I think this line will come into play over the weekend, which is why I have going on to a different chart back here, why I have the yellow box there. That's kind of the definition of that. Now, if I can take this off, here we go. So over the weekend on the low end, I could either see some floating down and bounce off of this and go back to the yellow zone. I could see it potentially float up over the weekend. Actually, let me get to a different chart. Let me go to the 1 hour chart so it's a little cleaner. Something to that effect over the weekend. As high as this over the weekend. But in general, I think there's a very high chance that whatever happens over the weekend will happen somewhere between this. It'll be, I think these would be the extremes of I would say whatever happens over the weekend maybe has let's call it 80%. I don't know if it's actually 80%, but I think it's a strong percentage. Whatever moves happen over the weekend happens here. Now, what I am anticipating is some trickery to happen leading in the beginning of next week, because there's high impact economic data happening, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday. So what could happen is it just goes in the middle, does nothing fancy over the weekend, and then on Monday has that spike up to touch the weekly 10, which at this point, so I'm going to be looking out for this, and I'll cover this on Monday as well, but over the weekend, you need to be aware of it leading into Monday, and then I would fully expect a failure from that point. And should that happen Monday, the price range for that would be closer to the 24 even as opposed to 24.1 to 24.4 up here on this channel line. All right, now let's take a look at a couple more things what I'm using. The daily 10. So at any point in time, the main two EMAs that I'm using for just judging where price is going, which happens to align roughly, it's roughly along the lines of my 3-zone mentality. So if I put that back on, you can see in general, the weekly 10, the upper limit, and for the middle of the zone is the daily 10, and it aligns roughly with that as well. So I could see some price action bouncing along these, but if it starts breaking down, what you could end up happening is if the red zone is hit and you get a bounce here, what I would do is I would expect that the daily 10, as price comes back up, could act as resistance. The daily 10 is in play, and if you have a breakdown, you might want to look at that price interaction with price as it comes all the way back up. And let's take a look at the 12-hour Stokes here. So 12-hour Stokes are a general good guide. Right now, while they are crossed down-ish, I guess the blue is crossed down, the faster moving's down, the red one's up, which means this could end up being a higher low. Could end up being. So here was a higher low, then you had the first, the rest of the, essentially the initiation of the move. So I would watch out for that. Price could float up over the weekend. However, this is not confirmed. The daily Stokes, they want to cross up, but this tick is unconfirmed. And if it is confirmed, I mean, the next day it could just start coming back down. So looking at these Stokes, they are usually pretty helpful, but right now they really could go either way. However, I think that pressure's down, but they are saying that there is a potential for the weekly 10 up in the low 24,000s to be hit over the weekend or leading into Monday, Tuesday, and that the larger time frame Stokes, midterm time frame like 12-hour and daily do support that as a possibility as well. If we're looking at the weekly, there's not much information here, so it's just it's going sideways. There's not a whole lot to see. But if we take a look at the 2-day, a lot of times a high and a lower high on 2-day Stokes. So I wouldn't use this on the 5-minute Stokes, but 2-day Stokes, a lower high. I mean that could mean that the power of the bulls is reducing, even though you do have a higher low here. But it looks like the bulls are having to do more work to get less and less done, and I think that this could support the idea of pressure down. If we go to the 2-day RSI, however, it does disagree. It says that this does have in its structure the ability to continue going up, but as I've covered the traditional stock market, I did not get the stock market cues that they would go up and tag the next resistance up, and that would have its effect on Bitcoin, meaning the high you see here is the bear market rally height, and it's not going to be surpassed. You're going to have to come back down and visit 20K before potentially ramping back up again, which is definitely possible, and I want to show you why. So what I'm about to show you is it could mean a lot of boring for a long time. All right, but I need to show you. All right, here we go. It has to do with this weekly 10. All right, check this out. When the weekly 10 is being interacted with, I guess I can get rid of this line. When it's getting interacted with for the first time after a big drop, a lot of times you get rejected, come down, form a higher low, and try doing all this kind of stuff, right? So on a week, I need to go to the weekly chart. There we go. On the weekly scale, you really only have one oscillation up. So it's completely possible that you see something to this effect and something maybe even to this effect, and then it drops down with the weekly 10 going like this. And this is why another, if Bitcoin were to bottom out somewhere at 20K, it could have another whole oscillation up on a weekly scale. And so this range, this could end up forming like some type of horizontal range that lasts not quite as long as the year plus long 30 to 60K range, but this could be turning into a range. And if that happens, I mean, it would be, it would be another 100 days, not 80 to 100 days of just flirting around and not making any, local lows, not doing anything impressive on the high. It's just price on the weekly candles interacting with its favorite EMA, the weekly 10. because they didn't interact with it for a while. So now it's coming up to interact. It just started this interaction. So once it gets rejected from there, it's going to come down and probably it could want to react again. And that's going to take months for this to play out, right? So, in this, as if price does break down, I'm fully expecting the possibility, like it is very, very possible that if I go on to a different chart, this line becomes more obvious, that this does hold. And price wants to come back up and test this all again. And the culmination of it might be where the bottom of this channel, essentially the weekly 10, price can't push it up, and the weekly 10 squeezes price below the bottom of the channel, and that is in October. It could be October until you get resolution of this. Like, this channel could hold until October, which means you could squeak out higher local high if you keep banging your head against that origin line right there. And this origin line goes back years and years in price, or is parallel to other key lines that have 12 years of price history tagged to it. But this origin line has never been interacted with on Bitcoin history, as I've shown in a few of my videos. If I can go to the 5-day chart real quick. As you see, this is the line right here that Bitcoin is interacting with, and it's never been interacted with, and it's being used as resistance. Like, this is really, really bearish stuff. So before price fully breaks down from here, the weekly 10 might have to squeeze price below the bottom of its channel, and because this is a weekly interaction, this could take months. But there's a lot of trading. I mean, Bitcoin would, that range would be pretty tradable. It wouldn't be the easiest to trade, but you would have something to the effect of a 40% range. I mean, that is pretty tradable. There's a lot of stuff to do. And the reason I'm saying this is, if you're somebody who's expecting another leg down, which I am at some point in this calendar year, a strong leg down, it is possible that it's going to take a lot longer than you're thinking, and that could be helpful if you're entering positions, especially for shorting. Just keep this in the back burner. I'm not for sure if this is my number one guess, where it takes months for this to play out. I'm kind of thinking my number one guess is the bearish cross that I talked about in one of my previous videos, where I said incoming dump, that thumbnail, and I will link you to that at the end of this video here in a bit. But there is strong reason to believe the next leg down will happen sooner. But keep this in mind: if the leg down happens and you see that bounce at 20K, this is probably what's happening. So this is a follow-up essentially to that video. If bounce, then you could go sideways till late September, October. So go ahead and click this video right here if you want to see why there's compelling reasons a third leg down in Bitcoin could happen within the next 2 weeks, and click this video right here if you want to learn how to set up a chart like me. If you're new in crypto, it's going to make you have a more profitable crypto journey. Just got Timified worldwide. Happy Friday. Enjoy the weekend.